Good morning, and welcome to Spiritual Sanctuary Wisdom for the Divine Feminine. Before we begin, I invite you to pause whatever you're doing, if you can, and just take one slow breath with me, in through the nose and out through the mouth. This episode isn't meant to be consumed quickly, it's meant to be entered. Today, we're going to explore the deep relationship between the Divine Feminine, the goddesses, and the priestess path, not as ideas to memorize, but as a way of living, remembering, and choosing differently. You don't need prior knowledge, you don't need belief, and you don't need to agree with everything I say. All that's required is your presence. So, first, let's look at the divine feminine as a way of knowing. The divine feminine is not a trend. It didn't arrive with social media, and she didn't emerge because we needed a softer spirituality. She's always existed as a way that humans understand reality. The divine feminine is a relational intelligence. What that means is that she teaches us that life moves in cycles, that wisdom comes through experience, that the body is a source of truth, and more importantly, the transformation requires descent as much as ascent. This is not a gendered energy. It's a human energy, and it's been historically suppressed, devalued, or labeled irrational. This happens a lot, especially in women, in caretakers, and in healers. I want you to ask yourself, where have I been taught to distrust my own knowing? Just pause here for a moment and just think about that. Where have you been taught to distrust your own knowing? Now, much of modern life is built on what's called linear time. It's progressive, it has to do with productivity, it's efficient, and it looks at outcomes. But the divine feminine works on what's called cyclical time. That has to do with the seasons, the phases of the moons, initiation into various roles in life, and the return to who we are. This is why burnout happens. This is why people feel spiritually disconnected even when they're doing everything right. You're not broken. You're living in a system that ignores cycles. The divine feminine does not ask you to push harder. She asks you to listen more honestly. The divine feminine speaks through sensations and emotions, intuition, fatigue, longing, grief. If you ignore these signals long enough, they become symptoms. Reclaiming the divine feminine is not mystical, it's somatic. I want you to pause for a moment, and I want you to notice your body. You can take in a deep breath, become rooted where you are. And what is it saying right now? Is there tenseness in the shoulders, hesitation, maybe anxiety? This is part of what these symptoms are. With it being somatic, that means that we have to release these, release the emotions. Sometimes that means sleeping. Sometimes that means practices such as yoga or Tai Chi. It can mean going for a walk in nature, journaling, but it is moving this energy out before burnout happens. Now let's move on to goddesses for a moment. Wherever humans observe life deeply, goddesses emerged. Why do goddesses exist? Well, they hold contradiction. They tend to reflect complexibility. What is complex in our society? They normalize change and they teach through story. A goddess is not an escape from humanity, she is a mirror of it. They are not perfect. And this is what's really important when you start looking at them. They are not sanitized, perfect role models. They are fierce and grieving and sensual and wrathful. They're protective and wounded and sovereign. And they show us that power and vulnerability coexist. If you only work with love and light, you miss half the teaching. Now, this is the thing. You don't choose a goddess. She appears when a pattern is activated. For example, you have a repeated loss. So a goddess that represents the descent may be shown to you, like a Nana. Boundary challenges, warrior archetypes. Kali's one of my favorites. Creative rebirth brings about fertility archetypes. Think about the mother goddesses. There's so many of them. And then endings, the crone archetypes, the aged ones. I love Baba Yaga. So this isn't superstition, it's pattern recognition. Now I want you to think about this. What archetype keeps showing up in your life right now? Are there movies or pictures or thoughts or readings or books that you're drawn to? Now remember that goddess work is relational, it's not performative. You do not serve a goddess. You enter a relationship with the wisdom that she holds. This might be journaling or rituals or embodiment of who she is, studying who she is, daily devotions, noticing patterns. There's no requirement to believe literally that she existed, but there is a requirement to engage honestly. Now, how does all this tie into becoming a priestess? The priestess path is responsibility. The priestess path is not a title, a hierarchy, a costume, a personality, or a platform. The priestess path is not about being seen, it's about being accountable to the sacred. Historically, the priestesses tended transitions, they guided rites of passage, they interpreted signs, they safeguarded ethics, and they held communal memory. They were trusted because they were grounded, not elevated. The priestess path is never about power over others, it's about power with responsibility. Now, what about modern priestesshood? Today, priestesshood might look like holding emotional space without fixing, teaching with humility, working with boundaries, honoring your nervous system, maybe saying no when it matters, and modeling integrity quietly. A priestess is not always visible, but she is consistent. Now, initiations aren't ceremonies alone. Initiations happen through grief and loss. They happen through illness and change and awakenings and endings, and more importantly, choosing yourself. Rituals can mark initiations, but life delivers it. I want you to stop for a moment and think about this. What initiation have you already survived? Now, how do these three interweave? I like calling them the living triangle. Think of it as the divine feminine as the current, the goddesses the expressions, and the priestess path the embodiment. You feel the divine feminine, you recognize the goddess, and you live the priestess path. This is not theoretical, it's daily. You don't need to have belief systems, you need integrity. The priestess path asks, how do you live differently now? What are you responsible for? and what must be tended. Now, this is where spirituality becomes grounded. This is very important as its embodiment over belief. Now, there's many ethics of the priestess path, and true priestesses work with consent, non-dependence, empowerment, clarity, boundaries, and humility. Anything else is a performance. Now, I want you to take your journal and I want you to think about this. Where are you resisting rest? What truth are you avoiding? What wisdom am I ready to embody? And what would alignment look like now, not someday? I have some daily priestess practices that I would love to share with you. Priestess's work doesn't require complexity. A lot of people don't even know that you do it. And it's not for other people to see. That's why it is so quiet and so powerful. It could be just lighting a candle intentionally, tracking your menstrual cycle or your energy, noticing seasonal shifts, checking in with your body, and choosing truth over comfort. Consistency matters more than drama does. Now, you're not becoming something new, you're remembering something ancient. The divine feminine is already alive in you. The goddess wisdom is already speaking. The priestess path begins the moment you choose alignment over approval. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You don't need to rush. You only need to listen and then respond with care. I want to thank you for being here and thank you for walking this path in your own way. If you would like to learn more about the Priestess Path, you can sign up for my newsletter at bertena.org, BERTENA.org. You can look through some of the self-paced classes. It's never too late to join the 52 Goddess a Week study, as you can start anytime. But until next time, may you trust your knowing, honor your cycles, and remember that you're already part of the sacred.